Cat of all trades.
Hey friends, welcome back to another Cat of all trades. We're back here brewing coffee. We are continuing on with our V60. So I've got my classic Hario V60 here, where I got the filter pre-wetted because I like to be prepared. If you're curious, this beautiful brewer is a fellow Stag double-walled glass carafe, and I love it because it doesn't make my hand hot and it keeps my coffee hot. So it's great. Unintentional product plug. We are gonna do a couple V60 Brewing Styles today, as I promised. So I'm just gonna give you a little background. We're gonna do one that is almost an immersion, and we're gonna do one that is a percolation method. So percolation, you're probably like, what the heck? That's that dusty old brewer. It sits at my parents' house, makes weird coffee or decent coffee, depending what you put in it. But percolation just means we are continuously adding fresh water. So you're not just dumping all your brew water in all at once. You're doing what we call a pulse brew method. So you're pulsing when the water is in, when it's drawing down, when it's brewing, as opposed to an immersion method, which means you after we bloom, we talked about why we do that, but after your bloom, you pour all your brew water in. This means that it starts with a super high extraction rate, and as the water is being diffused with the coffee solids, it is getting more and more saturated and therefore is less able and excited about pulling the new coffee solids. So you kind of get this extraction rate that goes like this, where percolation kind of goes like this. It kind of has these waves because you keep adding fresh water. It's got a low TDS. It is like attracting those coffee solids to itself. So we're going to do an immersion style. It's not perfect immersion because this isn't a switch or a clever or a French press or any of those sorts of brewers where you can literally just leave the grinds in the water to hang out as long as you want it to. This has a hole at the bottom, so it's always going to have some drawdown. But if we pour all of our brew water in at once, it is closer to an immersion brew. So we're going to call that our immersion brew V60. And then we'll do a percolation brew V60, so that will have at least one extra pour of water. So I'll show you one where you kind of pour in most of your brew water and then you do another pour after your bloom. And I'll show you one where it is a pure pulse method, so you wait, and every time the coffee bed starts to look dry, you add another pulse of water. These are all three great methods. The first one I learned while I was working at Pellet Coffee Roasters. Shout out to my Vancouver crew. And the second two I have learned while working with Monogram staff and other coffee friends here at Schoolhouse in Calgary. So shout out to those people. Without further ado, let's brew some coffee. So as we talked about, three different bloom methods, and I'm going to show you three different V60 styles. I might as well do the bloom methods just to refresh you. If you're curious, today I'm brewing some Gedeb Natural from Monogram. Tasty, natural Ethiopian coffee. Who doesn't want that in your cup? Okay, so Immersion V60, aka all the brew water's going in at once, besides the bloom. Always bloom. I'm going to do 1 to 17, if you're curious, my ratio, so that's 1 coffee to 17 parts water. And here we go. So, starting with the bloom. I'm gonna do that. 1 to 3 on my bloom. There's a quick stir. Gets all my grinds good and happy. Then I'm just gonna wait. I'm gonna give it 30 seconds. And then I'm gonna pour the remainder of my brew water in. So for this method, your grind size is almost the most important element, because if you get that wrong, it's gonna either over extract or under extract. You'll notice I started with small circles in the middle, then I'm doing small circles on the outside, just to keep the grinds moving, which helps us with even extraction. Okay, so that's done there. And now you literally just wait for it to draw down. So I usually aim for 2 minutes and 45 seconds and 3 minutes for your brew, because that just is a tasty spot that I found that I like for extraction. You might like a longer brew, you might like a shorter brew. Each coffee is going to be a little bit different because that's the nature of coffee, depending how easily the coffee solids are extracted from the structure. This has got a pretty fast drawdown rate, which just means the water is drawing down quickly through the cone. So it's probably going to be a little under extracted, is my guess, because we're not even at 2 minutes. So yeah, that's an immersion brew. The fresh water all goes in at once, and as it sits in the cone, as it has contact with coffee grinds, it is extracting and drawing down, and it makes V60 coffee. So that's number one. To pulse, I guess. I don't know. We'll call it something. I'll think of a title, drop it below. It'll have a name. So again, we're going to do 1 to 17. Got my coffee. We're all set up. I'm going to start the timer. We're doing our 30-second bloom. I showed you the spoon stir. This one we're just going to do a little swirl. Get those coffee grinds moistened evenly. You know, making for your happier extraction, setting it up, priming it. Getting to my 30-second mark. Sometimes I like to do a longer bloom, but with older coffee, as it's been on my shelf for a bit, 30 seconds is great. You can also notice it's stopping. So I'm going to pour in about 2/3 of my brew water. And then I'm going to wait for it to mostly draw down. And my hope is that will do so in about 2 minutes. This is actually a brewing recipe I got from Ply, from Rogueway. Hi Ply, thank you for the recipe. For a project I'm working on, very excited. More details to come. First pour, I guess that's technically our second pour because your bloom's your first pour. Second pour, we're doing about 2/3 of the remainder of your brew water. Waiting for this to draw down. It's very, very close. And everything's running fast. I clearly ground this to coarse. That is an indication for you to know if your grind setting is good, both the flavor and how quickly it passes through. But we're pretty much past, so I'm just going to add the remainder of my brew water, get all those grinds around the outside, back in the middle, and now just going to wait for it to draw down. So that is kind of your 3-pour method, percolation method, experiment. Gonna draw this down and set up for the next one. Okay, and for the final one, we're gonna do a pure pulse draw down style where we're gonna do 4 pulses. So I'm gonna divide my total brew water into those pulses, and every time I'm gonna let the water fully draw down so the bed's gonna look a little bit dry. Gonna do the volcano. That is our last bloom method. So now you give it a little shake, you give it a little swirl, make a little hole with your finger, and then we're gonna bloom it. Pour the water in as it gets to the top, make little spirals. Good. Then we let it set, giving it the usual 30 seconds. And then I'm going to give it the next pulse as soon as I hit 30 seconds. And then I'm just going to be watching for that drawdown time. So go. Pulse number 1, it's 1/4 of your total brew volume. Around the outside. That's where I like to pour. Some of my friends, they pour kind of circles right in the middle. I'm still experimenting. I'm not really sure which is better. I'm sure there's science behind it. I just don't know it yet. So here we're watching, waiting, it's drying down. Top is looking drier. Probably in another 3 seconds. Yeah, that looks good. I'm gonna add my next pulse. Little circles on the outside. I actually like to start in the middle when I'm doing a pulse brew and kind of spiral my way out. So that's the motion I make. So with my finger, it's going. And I always go in a clockwise direction, mostly because I'm following the grooves on the V60. They also go clockwise. Just helps with distribution and with even extraction. So again, I did my second pulse. I'm now at about just over half because I've been doing brain math while I'm doing this video. watching the water for it to draw down. This time is looking pretty good. So I think for a pulse, you do want a slightly coarser grind. So while it didn't work as well in an immersion situation, it's working really good in a pulse situation. So I'm getting close, gonna add my third and penultimate pour. Okay, there we go. We got one more pour, so I'm just waiting for this to draw down, do the final pour, let it draw down, you've got a finished cup of coffee. So those have been our 3 brew styles. We did a full quote unquote V60 immersion, and then we had our like 3 pour brew, and then this is our full on pulse brew. However you do it, it's going to produce a different style of coffee. So really try them, try all 3. Mess around with your ratio. Maybe you do small pulses and then bigger pulses with your water weights. Maybe you do like half an immersion in a French press and then pour it through a V60. I don't know, get crazy. Coffee is all about drinking something that makes you happy. So if it doesn't make you happy, you didn't brew it right, and try brewing it again. Thank you for joining me. I know this has been another long coffee video, but I'm super pumped you're here. One final note is swirl your coffee before you pour it. This helps aerate it. So like with wine, if you aerate it, it changes the flavor a little bit. Another tip I was given from my friends at Harkin Coffee, so shout out to you guys. Pour it from a height. You can actually pour it through a wine aerator, or you can just like, salt bay, but don't dribble down your arm, that will hurt. But if you pour from on high, as the coffee hits your cup and splashes around, it's going to aerate in and of itself. So those are the tips. These are some methods to help you enjoy your V60, hopefully better. Thank you for joining me. Tune in next time.